see if that works. Testing. There we go.
As I am made in my mother's womb, when I am laid to rest in a tomb, I find comfort in this thought alone, that I am Christ's and not my own. This is my comfort, this is my joy, this triune triumph, this triune glory. Oh.
All right, everybody, this is Zachary Kameen, the Curious Christian, and I am happy to have you guys here. I've been in the comment section for quite a long time now, enjoying uh, the uh, banter that goes on, joining a lot of times myself. But uh, I have been convinced by many of the uh, apologists that go on, a lot of the cultural commentators to uh, join the fun, as it were. I assume that a lot of the Christian apologists and whatnot are getting tired. I don't know. There's a lot of energy with those guys, so I don't know if they're getting tired. But at the same time, it is important that whatever is going on uh, continues to go on long after they're gone or I'm gone and I'm just starting. But the difference between those guys and what I'm wanting to do is really see um, if I, as just a layperson who's been a Christian for 15 years, can indeed survive the difficult world of uh, other worldviews. Am I too fragile to listen to somebody else give their arguments? So that's something that um, is my desire to discover for myself. So let's today my desire is to look at paganism and see whether or not I can uh, properly understand what exactly is this guy's argument. Um, can I follow along with it? And of course, I'm going to uh, seek to uh, be kind, and I'm going to do plenty of commentary when it comes to, because, well, one, I have to do plenty of commentary, but two, I want to be able to each uh, time he talks, I want to be able to say, like, what do I agree with, what I not agree with, um, looking for similarities in the situation. Um, this gentleman, Jacob, is a Norse pagan, and uh, he's basically has the view that my ancestors had forever ago. So it's not one that I look at um, with disrespect or dishonor, because I am called to love or to honor my father and mother, and he's, in my opinion, when it comes to paganism, you're to honor your father and mother, but that doesn't mean you have to uh, worship their gods, as it were, of the past. And because that's pitting the 10th commandment, or not 10th, but the fifth commandment against the first. But beyond all that, that doesn't mean that um, I can just whole cloth disregard them. But we're going to see whether I am able to keep up with what exactly he is arguing. So let's get started. First thing I want to point out, super beautiful background here. It looks like probably it says right here, Scottish Highlands, and this is basically a picturesque um, image of what you would expect uh, the Highlands to look like. You got sheep, you've got uh, a older, it might just be like a few decades old rock wall, barbed wire, and the beautiful Highland hills in the background doing what they do best, which is point you to the glorious artist, which is God. So let's get her started.
Hello and welcome back to the Wisdom of Odin. Today, I want to talk about Celtic paganism. Now, this may seem odd to my viewers who have been listening to the channel for a while, or for people who just heard me say the Wisdom of Odin. I am a Norse pagan, someone who worships the old.
All right, so this is interesting. So he's a Norse pagan seeking to uh, explain Celtic paganism. And it's interesting. It might be something that makes it fun or fun in a sense. Uh, it's not so isn't going to be an insider when it comes to this. Because understand, paganism means multiple gods. That means he's talking about somebody else's gods. It would be like me explaining Islam. Uh, but we're gonna see. I mean, David Wood, right? AP, who used to be a Muslim, is now a Christian. Was an atheist. And when he was an atheist, he was perfectly within his rights to explain what Christianity is and explain what Islam was and explain what atheism uh, or brings to the table, as it were. Uh, Same time, we're gonna uh, see how this plays out. I'm looking forward to uh, listening to how this guy wants to argue for a form of paganism that is not his own per se, but it is 51 minutes and it does have a lot of views. So I assume, in fact, let me see how many likes did it have. I mean, he's got 8.3, I mean, 8.3 thousand people liked it. Uh, Nothing utterly disrespectful. Oh no, right here. So it says it is Bavarian foothills, East Germany, Loch, okay, secondary source, uh, Lochman, Scotland, Celtic gods fort. So awesome. So he does have his sources. I appreciate it. So yeah, he's not uh trying to speak out of turn when it comes to this, and so he is doing us the respect and honor, and we will hear Jacob out. Again, I am not a pagan. I am a Christian. I was raised a pagan and became a Christian. Something tells me in the midst of this, he's going to say he was raised a Christian and became a pagan, which is something that I've heard. My mom did the same thing, and then she returned to Christ. So there's always hope. Don't give up on people just because they were a Christian and went to paganism. My mom was a Christian, went to paganism, and then returned after 20 years. So don't sell anybody's life short.
Old Norse deities, but also I have a great respect for the Celtic gods, Celtic heritage, and just really Celtic mythology. This is something that's always kind of been there, as I am very clearly of Scottish or Irish ancestry, and definitely my mother's side. And so I've always been interested, but the Norse gods are really the ones that called to me. Now, this did not stop my interest in Celtic paganism and Celtic myth. So I actually kind of researched them alongside of each other, and I always found Celtic mythology and Celtic paganism to me much harder to.
Okay, hold on a second. How did the Norse pagan gods call to you? Maybe you'll explain later, or maybe in another video, but like, I mean, I feel like you're using Christian language of calling, but what you really mean is, you really prefer them, or they vibe with you, or they resonate with you. Uh, I assume, like, when Christians say call, we're talking about, like, the Lord is a shepherd, and so therefore we as his sheep get called by him. Uh, and I wonder if in the midst of this he's going to point to people who have uh, argued. I don't know if "argue" is the right word, but who, I mean, in a sense, do know what they're talking about. He's saying that the or the Celtic gods didn't call him, so he's not dealing with inspiration. He uh, at the same time, another sources, somebody else's gods called him, but he's saying that he's of Scottish and Irish descent. So what's a foreign god doing calling you? Wouldn't it make sense that if the Celtic, like, wouldn't that start a war within the gods that one of them stole one of their people? Because that's basically uh, what's going on is a Norse god took a Scotsman, and so wouldn't that make the Celtic gods, the Scottish gods, angry? I don't know. We're gonna find out.
Research, and even coming up to this video, I find it very hard to find the right way to talk about it. So this video is going to be quite long to give you a good view of what Celtic paganism is, and it is very complicated. This one video cannot encapsulate all that it is. I mean, even looking at the term Celtic, the Celtic people, and what that means is not so simple. Yes, you can say the people here in basically Scotland are, Celtic.
What do you mean by basically Scotland? Are you in Scotland? Or he's just talking about Celts in general, which is fair.
Celtic people, but that's an oversimplification because you also have the Welsh people, the Pictish people, the Irish people, and then you have the Gaelic people, as well as the Germanic people who are Celtic. Celtic is a very broad term, and so saying Celtic paganism is a very broad thing. So, yes, there's a lot to talk about here, but the thing I'm most excited for is the road trip that I'm taking.
I like that in that map that he showed, it didn't it just said Britons for that whole island. But yeah, it amused me that he showed a map that I assume was trying to prove his point. So he got, uh, oh, I haven't written anything down yet because he's just giving an overview.
Taking you on, which is why I had to make this video. I am currently traveling up to Scotland, and so along the way, I will be showing you these beautiful backdrops and talking about this subject. So buckle up and get ready and bring out your notepads because there's a lot of information coming and a lot of very beautiful sights to share with you along the way.
Yay, ads.
Now, the first thing we need to talk about when it comes to researching Celtic paganism is your primary source materials, or at least the closest thing we have to primary source materials. They're not primary because they're not actually.
Yay, Beltane. Beltane's a pretty cool one, also known as Mayday. Uh, we kind of have that for, uh, well, I guess technically, was it Spring Break is a kind of Beltane, uh, but hard to explain Beltane. Uh, but I did choose paganism because of me being a musician. I assumed that uh, if there's going to be a worldview that will catch my eye the most, it will most likely be paganism. Uh, no offense to Jehovah's Witnesses or Muslims or Mormons or whatever. The idea that uh, those more novel forms were going to catch my interest were pretty low. Uh, the idea being, if I want, I'm not going to move to them if before at least giving the views of my ancestors a good hearing.
Actually written by Celtic people. They're written by the Romans and the Christians. And so, again, it can just be really difficult to research into Celtic paganism. And another reason, which I've already covered in this video, and I really just wanted to show you how widespread the term Celtic paganism is. You may notice something different about this environment. Maybe my hair is a little bit longer because this segment has been filmed 3 weeks later in Germany, where I'm actually staying here in Europe. And I'm actually in southeast Germany right now in Bavaria. And this area has Celtic history. Over in these hills is a Celtic ring fort. Over there is a Celtic druid stone. Hundreds of miles away from where I was filming in northern England and getting up into Scotland. And this area is considered Celtic. It has Celtic history. So I really just wanted to make sure you understood how bad of a term Celtic paganism is. It's just the one that is the most searchable, the one that people look for the most. And so it just really is hard to research.
All right, so I'm actually going to write that down. That one's probably going to fall in. So here, what I'm working with is just a simple truth, goodness, and beauty. So when he's talking about he's making certain claims about stuff, uh, I'm going to put them into these three categories of truth, goodness, and beauty. Uh, First thing, uh, goodness is a thing. So them, so they didn't, let me make this font bigger. Like, I'm not going to beat up on my ancestors too much, but for that 18, yeah, they didn't write down their views. Romans. And I'm going to put in here basically, other pagans. And Christians did. Now, the reason, so I'm going to put this Celtic converts, meaning it was Celtic people that converted to Christianity. So there were Roman pagans that had written down the views of the Celtic pagans, and then it was Christians, namely Celtic Christians. So guys like me, whose ancestors were Celtic, who then wrote down the views of their ancestors. Why? Well, as to honor their fathers and mothers. When he so he brought up uh Celtic ring. I believe he said Celtic ring. Let me double back.
How bad of a term Celtic paganism is, it's just the one. There's something different about this environment. Maybe my hair is a little bit longer because this segment has been filmed 3 weeks later in Germany, where I'm actually staying here in Europe. And I'm actually in southeast Germany right now in Bavaria. And this area has Celtic history. Over in these hills is a Celtic ring fort. Over there is a Celtic druid stone. Hundreds of miles away from where I was filming in northern England and getting up into Scotland.
Okay.
And this area is considered Celtic. It has Celtic history.
Okay, so he said Celtic ring fort. These are Celtic stone. I'll write that down, but then go back again.
Away from where I was filming in Celtic paganism is. You may notice something different about this environment. Maybe my hair is a little bit longer because this segment has been filmed 3 weeks later in Germany, where I'm actually staying here in Europe. And I'm actually in southeast Germany right now in Bavaria. And this area has Celtic history. Over in these hills is a Celtic ring fort. Over there is a Celtic druid stone. Hundreds of miles away
Celtic
from where I
druid
was.
stone. Okay. So I thought Celtic druid stone. So two things that they produced. Well, technically, the druid stone, by definition, isn't something they produced. It's something they recognized, right? But uh, obviously, they had uh, artificed it somehow. Here's what you can do. You can, oh boy, you must be branded a man with hand hair. Have no idea what you're talking about here, but not a huge fan. There we go. But yeah, so we are. I'm not interested in any money. I'm interested in being, if possible, unconverted from Christianity, and I'm going to let this uh, uh, what you cannot do apparently is tell about the real bread Jesus Christ gave you about 61 days after you get printed barcode. Oh boy. Well, you can try to convince me whatever you want, but at the same time, I'm going to let
Filming in
these
northern England and getting up into Scotland. And this area is considered
guys
Celtic. It has
do their
Celtic
best.
history. So I really just wanted to make sure you understood how bad of a term Celtic paganism is. It's just the one that is the most searchable, the one that people look for the most. And so it just really is hard to research this when you have such a widespread history through thousands of years, dozens of different cultures and languages. The people that were Celtic here were very different in a lot of areas than the people who were Celtic in Scotland, in Ireland, in Wales, in the Gallic region. So yeah, it's really hard sometimes. But now let's talk about those written source materials.
All right. So uh, he makes a good point. He's about to talk about written source materials, so I'm interested in that. So, and hopefully we'll get to what they believed. For now, uh, interesting that here, we'll do this. Uh, they had a vast influence over the barbaric tribes, aka my tribes.
Materials. Now, in this large area, we have very few source materials of very select regions. So over here in the France region, we have one source material coming from Julius Caesar in the Gallic Wars, where he talks about invading the Celtic people that lived here. Now, this work is good in some areas, as we will talk about later, because it talks about the Druids very heavily, and a lot of our information about the Druids comes from this work. But this work is mostly a slander piece against the Celtic people, and so it can be really hard to determine if what is written is true, because
Wesley, I am a Christian, not a Muslim. Go talk to somebody else, kiddo. All right, so you're saying sources. I guess we can put this in truth. So he's going to be bringing up the Gallic Wars. Misspelling words is my strong suit. Yes. Right.
Julius Caesar really focuses on the negative aspects, on the human sacrifice, the animal sacrifice, the blood, the savagery, because he wasn't writing a positive image about the Celtic people. He was writing about a people that Rome was invading. It's also important to note that Julius Caesar most likely never met these people. He
should be pointed out that Julius Caesar was a high priest, and so more than likely had his own you know use. He was the high priest of the nation, hence the Caesar part. But even before that, he was a sort of high priest, or a priest in his. So he's not opposed to blood in blood sacrifices. He's not. But still, those are things that they did. So I'll say I'll say so Jew Kaiser. Savage, bloody sacrifices. All right, get back to it again.
more than likely just heard reports from other people, much like how Tacitus wrote about Germania. They both learned from the soldiers and the Roman emissaries that were up there. So these are secondhand accounts of secondhand sources. But it is a really good source when it comes to the Druids, but just note that it is kind of iffy on how 100% correct the information is. Now, the next written source material we have come from the Christians, of course, and we're going to head north up to Wales and the Mabinogion. So the Mabinogion is the best source of Welsh mythology and lore and the Welsh deities.
MAPNOI. GI. Okay. Would have spelled like that. So it was Welsh. Let's just see how it was spelled. Look at that. Spell check for the win. Oh yeah. All right, so now we got the Mabinogion. I wonder what he's gonna say about that. Uh, be so kind
Now,
as
I
to.
haven't dug too much into this myself, admittedly, just because I don't know that much about Welsh gods. I plan on in the future, but I wanted to make sure, of course, I was mentioning it when I was talking about Celtic paganism. So if you're wanting to learn more about Welsh paganism specifically, the Mabinogion is where you're going to want to go. Now, moving over to Ireland, this is probably the source material that I know the most about and have.
So it is important right here. Sorry for pausing things. He brings up here's the Welsh gods by the Welsh Christians who, uh, in my opinion, as a responsibility in the following of the fifth commandment, uh, did just that. They made a record of what was it that our ancestors worshipped and why, what were the stories, things like that. Because uh, we're not commanded to obliterate our past when we become Christians. There will be a time where the gods of old will be remembered no more, but that is a natural thing. It's not an iconoclastic, like Muslims destroying all the idols of Afghanistan type of thing.
Have read more in depth, and the one most people probably want to know more about, because this contains a lot of the deities that people worship now, like the Morrigan and the Dagda. So over here in Ireland, you have these cycles of Irish myth and lore. You have the Ulster cycle, the Fianna cycle, the King's cycle, and the mythological cycle. And so all of these cycles came from Christians writing it down. And so, of course, you have the same problems we come into with the prose and poetic Edda from Norse paganism, is you have Christian influences within these works. Now, having said that, I actually found them very enjoyable. There's a lot of really humorous moments, and every now and then you come across a section, you're like, wait, what? Did you just
Well, yeah. So I'm wondering what he's about to say, but same time, he makes the point that there's a Christian influence sort of when it comes to these writing downs. But yeah, because the idea would be you read the Book of Chronicles, right, where they leave out a lot of the sins that the kings did and that the peoples did when from their history. So you've got the Book of Kings and the Old Testament, uh, and then you have the Book of Chronicles. In the Book of Kings, it's talking about the sins of the people and the sins of the kings because it's explaining why they got kicked out. Uh, Chronicles leaves out a lot of those issues, partly because uh, in the first commandment, God says that he only visits the sins of the fathers on the third and fourth generation, which means after, if God's not willing to revisit the sins of the fathers on past the third and fourth, then the children of the fifth generation should also not be willing to visit the sins of the fathers. Now, that doesn't mean that Christian, uh, the Christian descendants of pagan ancestry aren't going to bring up some of the sins or whatever, but they're definitely going to do what they can to honor their fathers and mothers. And so there is a sort of whitewash gloss going on. But here we got early Irish myths and sagas. So let me pop back over here. What's new? Early Irish myths and sagas. Cool. I'm gonna bring these to. Actually, I'll take this back. I'm gonna bring these because these are, in fact, the works of, okay, maybe this works of Christianized Celts, but at the same time, I'm willing to put them into, because it's Christian Celts discussing what their parents viewed. So, in a sense, I would say you've got to at least honor, even if your ancestors were pagans, you got to honor them so far as they survived long enough to bring you here. And so that is worth respecting. Right.
To say that, and so I really enjoyed reading the cycles that come from Irish mythology, and so really recommend them. Now, it can actually be really hard to find these in any kind of store, and when you actually search the Ulster cycle or the Fianna cycle, nothing actually pops up. Usually you might get a few different books, but nothing that actually says the Ulster cycle. And so the best one I found came from Penguin Classic Books, which was their collection of Irish myths and sagas, and it seemed to have the most written source material that wasn't edited too much by the people that translated it. So I really enjoyed this. I also found it on Kindle, so highly recommend the Penguin Classics translation and edits to the 4 cycles of Irish myth and lore. I will, of course, link all the books I discussed in this video down below so you can check them out yourself. But yeah.
Which he did. I will point out, I think I even pointed out at the beginning of this live stream that he had all of his source material down when it came to the East. He wrote down, or he put down the locations he was at so that if you don't trust that he saw them there, you can go there, check it out yourself. Maybe one day when I go to Europe, I will check them out myself. I want to point out that that more than likely this guy is an American, uh, because he has a Carhartt shirt on. Or at least, I don't know, at this video he's got one on, but I know at least one of these scenes he had a Carhartt shirt on. And that's super American. So it's an American Scotsman who worships German gods. I mean, Norse gods. I'll be nice. Uh, which, if those are the gods you should be, if those are the true gods, then yeah, fair enough. But then, yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah, other than that, those are your 3 source materials, the 3 main collections of source materials for Celtic paganism. So again, here I am in Germany, so far away from where I originally was filming, so far away from where these books were written. And so you have very limited written source material about a wide collection of people. So just keep that in mind. That's why Celtic paganism is really hard to get into, or at least one of the main reasons it's hard to get into is because the lack of amount of source material when it comes to the amazing size of the term Celtic pagan. So with this detour out of the way, let us head back to Scotland and continue this conversation on Celtic paganism.
Imagine having the opportunity to own premium real estate assets.
Well, it's very, while that's playing out. Oh, cool. There we go. So we're about to get into this some more. And it will be great. So let's get started. I'm assuming he's just showing off the country that he is working on. So we're about to find out.
After a long road trip from the north of England, we have finally arrived in Scotland, past Glasgow and into the Highland region. So this is the first loch you see after Glasgow, and this is Loch Lomond. It is here I want to talk about secondary source materials for you for Celtic paganism. So secondary source materials as far as books that have been written about Celtic paganism or Celtic history that will help you along the way, or at least who have helped me along the way. The first one I want to mention I actually only have on Kindle, which is The Celts by Alice Roberts. And I actually did see this in a bookstore here as well, and there's quite a few copies.
Celts by Alice Roberts. Write it down, y'all.
Along the way. The first one I want to mention I actually only have on Kindle, which is The Celts by Alice Roberts. And I actually did see this in a bookstore here as well, and there's quite a few copies, but I have it on Kindle here. This book is really good. If you want a good history book, a go-to one, and this one I've heard others praise as well, this one is seriously amazing. The Alice Roberts one is the first one that actually made any sense to me when digging through these books. I actually have several back in the States that I have read through, including the Mammoth Book of Celtic Legends, and it just wasn't something that it really clicked with me, and this really is the first book that really made me go, wow, this is really interesting. So seriously, cannot recommend this enough. The Celts by Alice Roberts. It is a good historical look at the Celts overall, and it does have an entire section on the myths and the religion. So again, yes, highly recommend it. Now these next two are actually two that we found here while traveling across to England. This was actually what we found in Lindisfarne. So this I've actually seen back in the States. So this is just Celtic Myths and Tales. The author is by, I don't actually see an author on here. I haven't actually read through this, but I have seen it in the States. So this is just one I know you can pick up.
Okay. So you got Celtic myths and tales.
Up, and it just has a retelling of different Celtic legends. So if you actually want something that is going to be a little bit more palatable, think Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman. This one we brought up for fun. It's a horrible histories book on the Celts, and the headline on here is "Get Ahead with a New Sword, Turn Your Enemies into Druid Fluid, and Cutthroat Celts." So it's just a little fun, little fun things. Have fun with your religion. Now this next section in this next book, I have to talk about something that I've really struggled with, because I want to make sure that it is fair, but also honest. This book, Druid Fluid and Cutthroat Celts. So it's...
So let me move, let me move me so you can see it. So Cutthroat Celt. So here, that's a weird thing. So here we go. Why would you, so here, so Cutthroat Celts. It is mildly amusing that he finds such a title to be amusing. But at the same time, what are you gonna do?
Just a little fun, little fun things. Have fun with your religion. Now this next section in this next book, I have to talk about something that I've really struggled with because I want to make sure that it is fair but also honest. This book, Celtic Myth and Magic by Aidan McCoy, is a beautiful book. I found it in Lexington, where I'm from in Kentucky, and it's really thick and has a lot of information.
Okay, so Celtic myth and by Aidan McCoy. Hey, that's about it, right? Cool. All right.
On it, and it does cover some of the things that we've already mentioned, like the Ulster cycle, but then it also has some things that have been added in the last 50 or 60 so years. Now, good things about this book: one, it's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, and it does have a very long list of gods, some of which I'll be mentioning in the next section of this video, talking about the deities. So if you need a reference for the large amount of deities in Celtic paganism, this is a good go-to book. The problem is, a lot of this book has been stuff that has been added to Celtic paganism since the introduction of Wicca.
Here's how women are able to earn $1,000 in 30 days by sending messages on their phone.
Nobody cares.
Into Wicca, but I do know that Wicca in general is very heavily based off of Celtic mythology and Celtic lore. But I also know that Wicca has been heavily added to in modern New Age practices. That is not necessarily a bad thing, and I'm not saying Wiccans are wrong, I'm not saying practicing Wicca is wrong, and I'm not saying Wiccans can't practice forms of Celtic paganism and vice versa. What I'm saying is it has made it very difficult to figure out what is traditional, like real world historical Celtic paganism and what is modern New Age Wicca practices that are disguising themselves or parading themselves as Celtic practices. So a lot of things, and I can't give you examples for all of it, but there is just a lot that has been.
At least he's being honest. And this is what I mean. This was what I was pushing when it came to pushing against Tim for, when he says he's a Norse pagan, talking about Celtic pagans, but then he's got a book where he himself recognizes the frustration of uh, a foreign. So you'd say, so New Age in a sense would be American pagans, right? Uh, you know, it's like the apple pie of paganism. Uh, and so you've got these Celtic fruits in the pie, basically. Uh, and so he's expressing the same frustration that I expressed at the beginning when he first mentioned that he was a Norse pagan. But at least he's honest.
Added that just really have no actual like pinpoints in history that I can discover, because there isn't a lot that can actually be pinpointed to a historical moment. Now, anyone that's actually watched my Norse pagan videos knows that this isn't a huge deal to me, but also I like to structure my videos by showing the historical sources first so that you know what is historical, and then I'll move more into modern New Age practices as well as my own. And so it's just really hard when a lot of Celtic books about Celtic paganism don't give you that discernment between historical and modern. And so this is one of those books where a lot of these things are modern practices that have been added in the age of Wicca. Maybe the best way to put it is Celtic paganism influenced Wicca, and then Wicca became its own thing. And then the lines between what is Wicca and what is Celtic paganism really became blurred, and we don't know where one begins and the other ends. And so it can be really difficult to research just Celtic paganism. But with that, there are some really amazing books out there. The Celts by Alice Roberts, in particular, is an absolutely amazing historical work and historical research, and even moments of the Celtic.
So he's again, I appreciate him. My mom was of the Wicca faction that he's venting about, and she never brought up uh, Celtic uh, anything. And I assume that during the midst of this video, there's going to be a lot of things that remind me of my childhood. So that'll be interesting to see a bit of the background of the practices that my mom had practiced.
Myth and magic book are good. And so just really get multiple source materials. It's the best thing that you can do. Cross-reference, do your own research. Don't just watch this video. Really, this is going to be another religion with homework, and it's going to take years to figure things out, and it's going to take you figuring things out. If you're watching this video, we need you. Celtic paganism needs you to figure out more about it, to do rituals, to perform it, to practice it, and to research it so that we can determine the differences between modern Wiccan practices and historical Celtic practices as well. Which again, there's Celtic and then there's the Pictish, and we're about to go see Pictish stuff.
And so right here, he's bringing up the fact that even this video here, even in the midst of the paganism that he's in, he recognizes the need for modern day paganism or New Age to honor your father and mother, honor the uh, at least honor your father and mother's fathers and mothers enough to categorize the uh, works that you're doing. Like, don't just blur them. Don't blend yourself with your parents and mix and match the uh, gods and practices that you do with those that your ancestors did, and then not give any respite or explanation for what uh, you're trying to teach. All right, let's go.
And then there's the Welsh stuff. It's complicated, but I think in the
It's
end
gonna
there
be
is
great.
something here to hold on to, and that's something we're going to be talking about here as we transition over to our next destination, which is, what is the castle? Which is Dunad Castle, which I know nothing about, but Kevin's going to tell me on the road there, and I'm going to do research, and then we're going to talk about gods and stuff. So see you there.
This is Brad.
Brad caught with his pants down. Brad was promised that he'd be 12 seconds faster in 2 hours.
Sorry, I wanted to mute Brad. So what's something that we've learned at this point is we've got a uh, man from Kentucky who is seeking as a devotee of Norse pagans, uh, recognizing that his ancestors from probably 1,000 years ago worshipped totally different gods, and he has a strong desire to find out, uh, as a way of honoring his ancestry, what were those gods all about. And he's even expressed on here, especially with the Myth and Magic book, he vented his frustration that there isn't a pinpointed uh, descriptor when it comes to uh, like he's probably wanting to find, okay, if my ancestors lived in this region, which god at this time before they became Christians were they worshiping? Because there's so many and each tribe had their own, and so he's wanting to know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised that if he knew which was his tribe, and then what god they worshipped, he probably worshipped that god. The reason why I say that is go back to this. One, if he was to find out which god his ancestors worship, he would then seek to do what those ancestors that worship that god practiced, because his view probably is that it they survived long enough doing those practices to produce him. So the truth, what God practice of those worshippers of those gods survived long enough to make him, and as a way of honoring him, he wants to know. And though I would say you're breaking the first commandment, I'm not mad at you for wanting to honor or to keep the fifth commandment.
So I want to take a pause from all the information here, because if you're someone getting into Celtic paganism, I want to recommend
that you keep your hair like that and do not put it in a man bun. I appreciate you for having it wild and woolly. Don't hold it back.
how I got into Norse paganism. And that is, yes, you have to do research. Yes, you do have to, honor your source materials, and there is work to be done. But at the end of the day, pagan religions are about community.
Haha, you said it right there. You have to honor the source materials. Why? Well, because parents, fathers, and mothers are by definition the source material of you. And he's going to tell us how to go beyond that in a sense. But we gotta be careful. If he's about to say you have to live your own life and forget about the source material, that is diametrically opposed to honor your father and mother. So please be careful.
With
Here we go.
nature, and that is no different than with the Celtic paganism to Norse
Back it up.
paganism. And that is, yes, you have all the information here. Because if you're someone getting into Celtic paganism, I want to recommend how I got into Norse paganism. And that is, yes, you have to do research. Yes, you do have to, honor your source materials, and there is work to be done. But at the end of the day, pagan religions are about communing with nature, and that is no different than with the Celtic paganism to Norse paganism. People in the ancient days saw gods in the world that they were in. And I have no doubt, as I'm standing here in Scotland, that people saw the gods here. They saw their gods here. Something, it's so vast, so large. How could they not believe in something vast and large and powerful? And so that's what they experienced. They sat around a fire, they told stories, they witnessed places like this, felt the energy, felt the wind, saw the water, and then they saw their gods. And so if you're wanting to get into Celtic paganism, yes, do your research, but ultimately you're going to find your gods outside.
And did plenty of mushrooms to boot.
You're going to find your gods in nature and beautiful places. And it doesn't have to be in Scotland. It doesn't have to be in a mountain. If you're in the United States or somewhere that isn't here, you can still find them, but you find them outside. I truly believe that pagan gods are found out in the natural world. And this is where you feel the most connected. And when the modern world gets so complicated and full of so much, I think that's why so many people are seeking old ways. That's why I found Norse paganism. I think it's why people want to find Celtic paganism, is to know what gods exist here, exist in this loch, exist on that mountain, exist in these skies. That's what people are trying to figure out, because they know it's not just one big creator god. They know it's multiple, because these mountains are so old and full of stories. That is why people believe in the old gods, or at least that's why I think they.
Well, no, because remember how many became Christians not by the edge of a sword, but just by simple being convinced of it. It wasn't, well, one, it's the power of the Holy Spirit, right? But beyond that, like, uh, they, uh, I understand the desire to believe that you worship nature and that means you find the gods out in nature. Uh, the issue is here I'm inside of a house, bookcase, surrounded by a bunch of artifices, or a bunch of artificial things, a bunch of artifacts. Why is it that the Lord Jesus says that when you pray, go into your prayer closet? Well, it's a prayer closet. It's literally it's an artifact. It's something, it's a man-made thing. Uh, and then you pray to your Father. Well, why is that? Well, because it's to prove to you yourself that, in a sense, you don't need nature to uh, prove to yourself that there is a God, because we are image bearers of God. Uh, you can indeed uh, find God even in a dungeon cell. Uh, this is this, in a sense, that statement of go into your go into a secret room, close the door, lock it, uh, means that even in the midst of absolute isolation, God is there. Uh, and partly because he created that darkness. Also, he created the artificer or the craftsman who created as a sub-creator uh, that building. You can't escape. Everything's natural. This wall is natural. This glass is natural. This bookshelf is natural. Well, why is that? Even though it's not uh, rooted into the ground, or this isn't sand on the sea anymore. Uh, it's because uh, image bearers of God who were commanded to imitate him as dearly beloved children had sub-created glass. They took the natural qualities of sand and silica and whatnot and melted it down to create this. They took a tree, sawed it up, uh, opened up that forest so that younger trees can come in, and to make the forest more fruitful. Along with that, creating a beautiful piece of artwork. Uh, and the reason why even this stuff can point you to the one true God is because we, as image bearers of God, reflect that, and so we create these things. So that means switching back, uh, like, let me bring this back up. All right, so worship nature. Actually, God's only found in nature must go out in nature to be close to them. Minimize your artifices as to enhance experiences you have with the gods. And I'm going to one, no, one That way we can keep track of the truth, goodness, and beauty of each point.
They do and why people are returning to them. So I hope you find your answers. I hope you find your gods. And I hope you find Scotland as well, because oh, it's pretty here. So anyways, we're going to get back to the video now and get back to the information segment. But this is my channel. This is the Wisdom of Odin. This is what I built the channel on, is sharing the facts with you, sharing what I know about Norse paganism, what others have found out, sharing experiences, sharing rituals, showing practices, honoring the gods. This is the channel. There's so much content here. So if you like the content here, I will be talking more about Celtic paganism in the future. I do plan on coming back here to live for a couple of months next year if my plans work out. And so I will be sharing more content from Scotland, more content about Celtic paganism. So if you want to see more content like that, make sure you like and subscribe and all that good stuff. And be ready for more adventures across this beautiful world talking about pagan subjects. So with that, let us get back to this video talking about Celtic paganism.
Well, at least he's passionate about it, and I appreciate him on that. Because a huge part of even convincing anybody uh, is to be passionate about it. But I would say, we think you got to be careful, and I hope that he doesn't fall too far. We're gonna see.
It's so pretty.
You've probably heard about Roxable's flagship product, the casino.
There we go. Gun ad for it. Say Gunad Fort is what it was called. Put it over here. He'll bring it up again, but I'm gonna misspell it now. Oh, maybe it fixes it. Eh.
So Kevin and I are currently standing on the top of Fort Dunad. This was the object of our journey here, and very interesting history. Before I talk about the gods, I know I've been teasing you for so long, but history is important, especially if you want to get into paganism. So up here is a 1,500-year history as well as some mystery. So up here on the fort, Fort Dunad, was supposedly, or pretty well known, this place where kings of this time would actually come and
I'm curious about this. All right, so he said that history is very important about the paganism, and I am going to assume that he's referring to, well, a Roman idea of piety, which translates really well into uh, Christianity. And the idea for that is how do you honor the gods? How do you honor your father and mother and whatnot? So we'll see.
swear their fealty to the land and declare themselves king. So there's actually a very ceremonial place here. And again, to a child's mind, to someone who doesn't really respect and love history, or to someone who isn't pagan, that might just see this as a stone. But right here on this stone is a place where the king would place their foot and declare themselves king. That is pretty amazing. There is more history on this stone as well. Right here, you can barely see it anymore, but this is actually probably some of the only evidence of Orgrim, like the Celtic Gaelic writing right here. Some of the lines still exist And then over here, you can barely see it still, but there is actually the carving of a boar right here, which, if my history serves me correctly, is usually a sign of kingship. So it's barely in here, this drawing of a boar. And then, interestingly enough, this is not on the sign back here, and I haven't seen it.
Oh, it is on sign.
Oh, is it the bowl?
The basin
The basin. What does it say the basin's for?
to the left of the inauguration stone.
Okay. So it's barely mentioned on the sign over here, but there's also a bowl. This bowl, over near all the poop, the feces, this bowl right here is obviously not natural. This is a man-made bowl. Let me tell you something I know about man-made bowls. These were used to collect things. Typically those things were blood of animals. So this very much, in my mind, it is not listed on this sign. The sign simply means the inaugural bowl, the inaugural vessel. But they don't specify what was done here. I can almost guarantee you what was done here. So 99% sure in my mind this was used for sacrifices when the king actually took his step only feet away.
Yep. So, well, first thing, cover up the boobas. And I'll play real quick and then. There we go. Yep. So there we go. Right. So he brings up, he's going to talk more about it. So you have inauguration. And of king, sacrifice, bowl, feet away. Those are things that they did. Oh, and there were carvings and symbols on the stones.
Sacrifices when the king actually took his step only feet away. I can also tell because all the animals have decided to defecate around here, meaning that they know what happened here 1,000 years ago. I joke, but this is a very important spot. I mean, Fort Denard, not a place I ever expected to be. And really, you wouldn't expect it being up here, thinking that it would be something special. I mean, from the road, it really just looks like a hill. But up here is one of the most important places to ancient Scotland and the ancient kingdoms that were here. And as Kevin has put it, it also could be the ancient site of Camelot. So, you know, could be, but still really cool. Hope you've
Everything with the ancient site of Camelot. Everything. Which is probably part of the joke, right?
enjoying the view up here. Around here is apparently over 200 different historical ancient sites that have to do with ancient Scotland. And I really want to come back here and show you them. But right now, I can only focus on the over 200 sheep that are all batting around me. Anyways, I will head up here and we will talk about gods and Celtic paganism. But again, I wanted to make this video different. I didn't want to just sit in front of a screen, in front of a computer screen, and just list you the gods. I don't think that actually shows the living reality of this religion. To be able to show you a place of significance in Scotland talking about the Celtic gods, I think that is something very important. But now, let us talk about the gods. All right, we have finally arrived at the gods section. Sorry to keep you waiting for so long, but there's a lot of backstory that you have to know before we get in here, because this is complicated. There's just no getting around the fact that Celtic paganism is just more complicated to get into than Norse paganism, at least in my experience and what it seems like the experience of others. And
It's probably partly due to there's more, is it Norse paganism is when the tribes are trying to combine up, so there's not as much need for contact, while Celtic uh, gods were very uh, tribal focused, and so you do need context for each uh, tribe, and so understandable.
I was even worried to make this video because there just seems to be so much inconsistency with how things are shared and talked about. And so again, I just want to specify I'm not perfect at this. I'm not saying I'm perfect. You're not going to be perfect. No one is perfect.
There's no reason to apologize. Trust me, when I see Muslims trying to explain Christianity, they may have something to apologize for, but you don't have any apologies needed. Don't worry, boss. Don't worry, Jacob. I forgive you.
And that is okay. With that out of the way, there are so many gods in the Celtic pantheon because it's not just one pantheon. It's the pantheon of the Irish, it's the pantheon of the Welsh, it's the pantheon of the Picts, it's the pantheon of the Gauls, it's the pantheon of the Germans. There's so much going on here. And I think the best way to show you is just to run through the list of Irish deities because these are typically the ones people go to the first and foremost. But I did have a list of Welsh deities that I know nothing about. So I will hopefully be talking about that at some point, but I just do not feel comfortable mentioning the Welsh deities just because I don't know how to pronounce them at all. I don't know anything about them, but they are out there. There's so many, and there's bound to be so many deities that we don't know. Celtic paganism is very location based.
That's what I figured, honestly. Literally what I was thinking.
And there's just so many different pantheons. That one book I showed you, the Celtic Myth and Magic book, listed over 400 different deities. It's insane. But here are the main ones that I hear a lot of people talking about, and the ones you're probably interested in. There is the Dagda, the Morrigan, Naaman, Brieged.
Hold on.
Pronounce them at all. I don't know anything about them, but they are out there. There's so many, and there's bound to be so many deities that we don't know. Celtic paganism is very location based, and there's just so many different pantheons. That one book I showed you, the Celtic Myth and Magic book, listed over 400 different deities. It's insane. But here are the main ones that I hear a lot of people talking about, and the ones you're probably interested in. There is the Dagda, the Morrigan, Maca,
Double back, sorry.
but here are
We
the
will
main
pause
ones that
this
I hear a
proper.
lot of people talking about, and the ones you're probably interested in. There is the
Alright, here we go. God of Druids, the Dagda. A fertility in fields, chief and father god, and god of life and death. So we will, maybe he'll talk about them, but at the same time, we'll see.
the
Yeah.
Dagda, the Morrigan,
Alright, we got war goddess, shapeshifter, goddess of fate and death. So we got two gods of death associated with crows. That's fair.
Maca,
We got victory, protection, fertility, fire, and horses. So a lot of anthropological deities.
Naaman.
Naaman sounds familiar. Another war goddess, one of the triple goddesses of Morgan. Triple goddesses. But like she had build, yeah, whatever. Let me make myself smaller on here. Put myself in a corner over here.
Breezed.
So we got wisdom, poetry, Bridget. Oh, man. So here's a fun part for you. So Bridget was, so here, wisdom and poetry, healing, Catholic. Yeah. Saint Bridget is based on her uh, possible triple. Well, here's the problem. There was a lady named Bridget, which is part of the reason why they, uh, oh, he says breach, right? So there was a lady named Bridget who was really good at making beer, and she was not she was never married, so she was like what nuns are supposed to be, I guess. Uh, and uh, we get our English word bride from Bridget. When somebody says that we are looking for our bride, that word comes from the word Bridget, from the name Bridget. We are looking for our Bridget because uh, she was like the one who ran the potluck in ancient Celtic Christian times. And so it's not a matter of based on her. Uh, it's a matter of there was a uh, name. I mean, she was a Celtic woman, of course. Her name, I would say, in a sense, it's that whole like, was it? There are people who have names and then they do things that match their name. So you got the person who sought to assassinate Trump. His last name's Crook. Like, it's the best name possible for that. You've got that guy who, like, harassed some girl and his last name's Wiener. It's hilarious. There are just certain people who have names that match uh their behavior and their fate. And so this lady, Bridget, who the Catholics uh had made a saint, had a name that fit the personification. Uh, it's not an accident. My daughter Xena was named Xena when she was first born, and then she's had a heck of a time. We just got into a car accident or earlier this year. Where she almost died when she was first born, and so a lot of people have always said like that she's like Xena the warrior princess. That's not why we named her, but her name fits her life right now. And so we shouldn't be surprised when we just, especially thousands of years of ladies named Bridget, somebody is going to fit the bill. Sorry, that was just a reaction. It's not fair of me to pick. I am trying to learn on here.
Lug.
Luke, oh man, I actually have a
Angus.
song. No, go back. Go Burke. I actually wrote a song about Luke.
Maca. Naaman.
Yes, yes, yes.
Breezed. Lug.
Here we go. Here's the sun god. I don't know why I don't put that here. So warrior king, O's law festival, Lugan Sod is held for him. Yeah. And I mean, even with this picture, you see it's sun god because sun. Let me see if I can find it. It's on my song that I wrote. Let me come over here and bring it over. Here we go. So here's the song I wrote. So uh it is on yeah. So is it good to twist my neighbor's word, making good sport out of word bending, biting their back with my sharp tongue sword, smearing their name like Hector dragging? How dare I condemn an unheard man, condemning brother Lug at midnight, wielding a Mjolnir to rashly reckon, shall my tongue be full of Loki's lies? Bless my neighbors with my loving tongue, speaking honestly in every claim, confessing truthfully without horns. I will promote my neighbor's good name. God's heavy wrath burns hot over double tongues. Lisping liars work hard to make truth hamstrung. So, sorry, I just got excited. He brought up a God that I brought up in my own work. So, sorry, I got excited.
Hug. Angus. Onya.
It's a summer goddess wealth associated with the sun and red mare. Oh, there's only so many things you can associate stuff with. And I would assume that these are different tribes, right? So you've got Luke, who one tribe associates with the sun. You've got Ain, who gets associated with the sun, and so jump around.
Nuada.
Nuada, the god of the hunt, first king of the oh yeah, Tuatha Day loses arm in battle. That's probably fair. Uh, it's probably like how I mentioned Brigid. Uh, similarly, like I mean, it's a Celtic tradition to maybe go too far in honoring your father and mother, but alas, here we are.
Goivnu.
Goibnu, smithing god, hospitality crafter. That's probably nice of him.
Danu.
Danu, Earth Mother. Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, Earth Mother, fertility and wisdom had various names with different groups. Well, so yeah, this is making the point that I brought up that uh, each of these are going to be associated by different tribes, the same things.
Manin MacLear.
MacLear, king of Otherworld, associated with the sea. Well, the sea is another world, widely worshipped even by the Scots.
Baylor.
A giant with one eye brings drought. How rude. Associated with the bad aspect of the sun, the dark side of the sun.
Ethnio.
Ethne, daughter of Beelu, mother of Luke. I don't feel like I want to overthink that one.
Cuchulainn.
Right, form of demigod full of warrior and hero died in battle strapped to a standing stone. You know, we also have to remember a lot of the mythologies or whatever uh point are the my ancestors' way of recognizing the diversity of God, uh, but losing the unity. Then you've got Muslims who cling to the unity but forget about the diversity. Mythology is uh, a nice way, or one way of saying is studying who God is by way of stories.
And Ogma. So I put a little bit of what we know about these deities under them. Again, I'm not an expert in any of these, but I just wanted to give you a list so you can start doing your research. As always, I apologize for the wind up here, but wrapping up the God
It's
section here,
always
another thing that
windy.
makes God worship and veneration and research really difficult when it comes to Celtic paganism is the fact that it's really hard to determine who is a god and who is not, and who's a hero. So it's just one of those things that you're really going to have to practice. And I want people to go out there and practice, which is why I'm making this video. So in order to practice, you're going to need to know how. So we need to talk about rituals and why we perform rituals, which also means we need to talk about druids. So let us head to another location and talk about ritual practice within Celtic paganism.
So I do appreciate. So what did he just do first? He brought up the long list of gods that falls into the truth section. Right. So I didn't write them all down, but I noticed during the whole thing he shows a large list that get associated with all sorts of gods. Next, he's going to be dealing with goodness. I'm actually going to stop the stream now, and we're going to pick up next time on the goodness because he's given me such an amazing break on where to do it. Plus, I have to put my own daughters to bed, and I want them to be able to honor me, their father, one day, and not remember that I spent more time streaming and less time serving them as their father. So, God bless you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening.